Today, the militant pro-abortion Jane's Revenge said 30 days of patience and mercy have come to an end. They now pledge to accelerate acts of terrorism and violence in an effort to stop the court overturning Roe and to silence pro-lifers. As I mentioned earlier, here's the president's and his administration's response. Nothing. Absolute silence. Well, Jane's Revenge is not the only entity trying to pressure the court. Abortion Research Hub, the Guttmacher Institute, has released its latest 3-year report on the trends and incidence of abortion in the United States, and the Abortion Surveillance Report, which covers abortion occurrences from 2017 to 2020. And it shows a rise in U.S. abortion rate, and the U.S. abortion rate of about 7%. And they're saying this underscores the need to protect abortion, and therefore the court should not be able to overturn it. Joining me now to talk about this is Dr. Michael New, Associate Scholar at the Charlotte Lozier Institute and Research Associate at the Catholic University of America. Michael, welcome back to Washington Watch.
No, thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
So, all right, let's just take these. Give us the increases. What's behind the increase in the abortion rates? Is this legitimate, and what do we make of these latest figures?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I do think it is legitimate. That both data from the CDC and data from the Guttmacher Institute does show this is 2017. There has been an increase in the U.S. abortion rate after a very long-term decline. And it is important that we have made good progress long-term getting abortion numbers down, but there has been a slight uptick since 2017. Why is this? There's a couple of reasons. First off, there's been a big increase in chemical abortions. Data from Guttmacher shows that as of 2020, over half, 54% of all abortions are chemical abortions. And during the pandemic, there was also a real push to expand access to chemical abortions. Due to a court ruling, women who want to obtain chemical abortions could actually get one without in-person medical exam. And that's obviously fatal for the unborn child, but also dangerous for women. Another thing we need to worry about is that in many blue states, many liberal states, they're making their abortion policy more permissive. Since 2017, both Illinois and Maine have started to cover elective abortions through their state Medicaid program. And not surprisingly, abortion numbers went up quite a lot in both states. So that's kind of a brief snapshot of why abortion numbers are going up.
Well, and I think that's important to point out that in those states that have liberalized their abortion policies and in fact have been funding them, they're getting more of them. And so when you see at the federal level a push by the Democratic Party to have taxpayer funding abortion without any questions asked, you don't have to guess what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. You're going to have more abortions.
No, absolutely. It's basic economics. I mean, if abortions are free or very heavily subsidized, more women will obtain abortions. If women have to pay out of pocket, abortion numbers will go down a bit. And we know this from research in the states, and we also know this from research on the Hyde Amendment. And the Hyde Amendment limits the ability of the federal government to pay for elective abortions through Medicaid. And there's a very broad consensus of research that shows that the Hyde Amendment has saved millions of lives. The Center for Reproductive Rights back in 2010 did this study and found the Hyde Amendment saved 1 million lives. My research has shown it saved over 2 million lives. So we really know that cutting off funding for abortion really does stop a lot of abortions and saves a lot of lives.
Well, even more so than that, based upon my reading of this report, those states that have enacted pro-life policies, they've reduced the number of abortions in their states. So policy has an effect on this as well, not just funding.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we know from Texas, the heartbeat law, number of abortions performed in Texas has been cut by more than half since the heartbeat law took effect September 2001. In Missouri, there's really only one abortion clinic remaining. Missouri's been a real leader in terms of the pro-life laws they passed. They've seen very large declines in their abortion rate. So yes, enacting pro-life laws and passing pro-life policies does help and does get abortion numbers down.
So, Dr. New, my take on the release of this at this time is more about trying to influence the court, basically saying, hey, there's been a rise in the number of abortions in this country, therefore we've got to keep it legal.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I think that they're trying to make the case that abortion is common and is frequent. And again, we have had good success getting abortion numbers down. even with this, recent increase, the abortion rates declined by more than half since 1980. And one thing we also know is that more and more women facing unintended pregnancies are choosing life for their unborn child. So women are relying on abortion a lot less. We have a lot more pregnancy help centers. We're passing a lot more laws, and there's plenty of good options available for women in need. So I don't think this is going to succeed at all politically. I think it's something pro-lifers need to be aware of,
Right.
But I don't think it's a cause for panic. I think that the Dobbs decision will allow us to build on the impressive gains that we have made over the past 40 years.
But just so our viewers, listeners are clear on this, if you take the last 40 years, what we're seeing here in the last few years is just basically an outlier. It's a blip on the radar screen because we have seen a steady decline overall in abortions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, since 1980, the U.S. abortion rate has fallen by more than 50%. It's less than half of what it was in 1980. And again, a big reason for that is because a higher percentage of unintended pregnancies are being carried to term. And that all flows back directly to the efforts of pro-lifers.
Yeah.
Or education succeeding, our service efforts are succeeding, and we're passing more and more pro-life laws.
All right, Dr. Michael New, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.